Good evening and welcome to our Tuesday Night Live. We're so glad you're here. This live will begin shortly, and we're excited to share this journey with you. This is a space of kindness and encouragement, so let's be welcoming to everyone looking to better themselves. If you have questions, drop them in the chat or use the super chat to make sure it gets addressed. Thank you for being a part of our community. Let's make it a great night. Good morning. It's still morning, isn't that right? It's still morning. It's morning. All right. It's Tuesday morning live with me on a Tuesday in the morning, but it's Tuesday Night Live in the morning. Good morning. How is everybody? Rick is here already. Rick is here. Mr. Quack Quack himself.
Let's get dangerous.
There we go. Mr. Rick is here. Thank you for being here. I said to say hello to him. And I have to say, we have a new member. Muhammad is a new member. Fantastic. Friends. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Let's go ahead and get this whole thing kicked off, the whole shebang. Good morning. I hope you have your coffee. I have mine. I've been waiting to drink it just for you. And if you're wondering, Chandra is under the weather. She's right over there laying in bed chilling because she doesn't feel good. A certain tiny person has coughed on her enough to get her sick. Over the weekend she was sick, and now yesterday basically slept the entire day, which was kind of nice. I mean, I don't want her to be sick, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so she's under the weather and won't be joining us. So this is going to be relaxed, less structure, not so much an agenda, but I do try to make sure that there is something to talk about. But, the floor is open for you guys to talk about anything you guys want to talk about, questions, anything, concerns, your wins, your losses. Some weeks we're going to do deep dives and focus topics, and some weeks are simply about showing up and connecting. And today is very much the latter. So again, just to reiterate, this space has always and will continue to always be community first. And that's what we're leaning into today. Bring your questions, your thoughts, your wins, your frustrations. Just hang out. And we'll talk a little bit about the Elkhart meetup that's coming up. We're trying to finalize the details of that because Joe and Rachel will be in Elkhart the first week of March. So we're looking to get that solidified. Most likely is going to be Monday, March the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. And then we're going to touch on Keto Pa-Loo-Za, which is coming up in October. Tickets are on sale. All of the advanced tickets, the advanced discounted tickets have been sold out for some time. And then we'll look at it. If there's anything relevant in the news, we'll look at, think that we're just going to hang out. We'll cover it. No pressure, no perfection, just honest conversation with this coffee that I need very much. But yeah, Chandra's been feeling awful, and I feel bad for her. So let's go and see who else is here. We see Lynn is here. She says, good morning, Dustin, Chandra, and everyone. Sharon Holloway is in the house. Good morning, Sharon. So very glad to see you. She says another round of snow has started for today. I don't know if we're supposed to get snow. I don't see anything in the forecast for this week. I do see temperatures kind of all over the place. It's actually going to get above freezing on Friday, but just barely. The downside is it's been so cold that the snow and everything on the roads was compacted enough that it was basically like driving on concrete. And then it started to warm up. It got to like 28 to 30 degrees yesterday. and then we were slipping and sliding and slushing around again in the snow from 2 weeks ago or whatever it is. And so Sean is here. She says, good morning to Sharon. Nobody else, just Sharon. I'm sure she's going to say hello to you too, but Sean is in the house. Good morning, Sean. Mr. Bradley, our good friend. Glad to see you all here today. Sharon says, having a wonderful hot tea and getting ready for a very, very busy day. Well, I hope that your day is busy but good. Nothing wrong with a good busy day, right? And Sherry Nevada Pup is in the house. She says, good morning, friends. And Shauna says, I'm having my usual work in approximately an hour. And then she says, hi, Dustin. Yeah. And Shelly King is here. Hello, Shelly. Glad to see you, my dear. Welcome. Sandy Blythe is here from Florida. Good morning. And Mr. Twin Brook Acres is in the house listening while working. And Shelly's excited because she made it at the beginning of a live. Good Tuesday morning, friends. And Cass is here. Good morning, Cass. Good to see you. Making breakfast, meat and eggs. I love it. We haven't eaten yet, but we don't usually eat right in the first thing in the morning. It's difficult for us. We're not really hungry until later. And I'm going to be caught up with the chat here ridiculously early. Sandy's already drank a whole pot of coffee. I can believe it. If I didn't have this live, I would have already had my coffee drunk already. I went to sleep last night and didn't set up the live. So that's why we're an hour late today. I just want to set it up and let it sit for a little while. So you guys knew it was coming because I forgot to set it up. Not really forgot. I was tired. Okay. I worked hard yesterday at doing absolutely nothing. Okay. Just hanging out with Chandra, making sure she had what she needed. And we napped a little bit and then, hung out with our granddaughters and stuff, And Shauna says, hugs to you, Chandra. She says, thank you, Shauna. She's playing it up for the camera. She was just doing somersaults a minute ago. Everybody says they hope you feel better soon. I hope she feels better soon. Oh, my goodness. Let's take a look at some of this information because, let's see. I wanted to look. Let me see. What was something that I wanted to look at here? So it seems like there's a continued debate around protein intake and an insulin response. Let me see what I can find. I'm going to see if I can pull some of this information in and we can discuss it a little bit. Because it appears that it centers on whether high protein diets improve insulin sensitivity through weight loss or impair it by increasing insulin demand and gluconeogenesis. Now, so again, one of the things that happened when we started a ketogenic lifestyle in 2016, the major consensus was the ketogenic lifestyle was a moderate protein way of life, because if you had too much protein, then we were looking at an impact of insulin response. We were looking at an impact of glucose through gluconeogenesis. We figured that there was there was too much. If you had too much protein, it was going to trigger gluconeogenesis. Though over time, we've come to find out more or less the fact that gluconeogenesis is going to be more demand driven and not so much consumption driven. Now, I imagine that in some cases, depending on your metabolic health, your metabolic flexibility, that there probably is some concern with the amount of protein that you may be taking in, because again, protein and things can impact insulin and can impact some, you're going to, if you eat steak, you're not going to have a flat, and you're not going to have a flat blood sugar response. Most likely, some people are going to see a big spike. Some people won't. Some people may see a flat, but I mean, it's going to be realistically the difference between how your body reacts to it. So again, an insulinogenic response, effect. Protein is insulinotropic, meaning it promotes insulin release similar to carbohydrates, but typically without increase in blood sugar. So you would think, that if that's the case, that it would cause a decrease in sugar and blood sugar, because it's going to cause the blood sugars to go down if you're releasing insulin. Now, one thing that we understand about insulin is insulin can be released in the body just by looking at food, just by thinking about food, just by seeing a food commercial. So we understand that there is like that was like maybe is it the cephalic response, babe? She's not listening to me. Like I think it might be the cephalic response. Well, like if you just you just look at food and then it's going to cause an issue, right? So then we can look at the metabolic impacts, like high protein intake can increase insulin sensitivity due to weight loss. Conversely, it might promote insulin resistance through excessive gluconeogenesis, creating glucose from amino acids, and increased branched chain amino acid BCAA levels. But again, with that, there are conflicting studies, because some studies show high protein diets improve metabolic health and insulin sensitivity, especially when replacing refined carbohydrates, while others show no benefit or potential, albeit debatable, harm. Now, one question or one thing that we've seen with someone like Dr. Sean Baker, or somebody who has been living a relatively strict carnivore diet for some time, they will find that their A1C begins to creep up, but they're not really sure if that's an increase in glucose in the system, or if it's an instance where the red blood cells are living longer, causing a kind of a false positive when it comes to high A1C, to where, because if they're living longer, then it's going to be a bigger, longer snapshot, because typically the A1C is a 3-month snapshot of what you've eaten, 90 days. But because that's about how long your red blood cells live. But if you're doing a high, a high protein diet, living a carnivore lifestyle, we have seen, or at least there is the theory that red blood cells live longer, causing an elevated A1C, but it's not quite the same impact of having an elevated A1C, if that makes sense. So we have to look at the contextual factors. The impact depends heavily on protein sources. Dairy dairy may be different than beef, actual meat, those kinds of things. But we have to look at also the diabetes consideration and type 1 diabetics. High protein can increase insulin requirements, while type 2 may increase insulin resistance if consumed in excess. But again, there's obviously conflicting ideologies here, or conflicting studies, conflicting outlooks. So basically, people that are pro high protein argue that high protein boosts satiety, promotes weight loss, and helps manage blood sugar levels better than a high carbohydrate diet long term. As we do see that in the short term, we have seen people utilizing things like the sugar diet in the short term to improve certain metabolic functions and seeing weight loss, but that's only in the very short term. It's not a long term thing that you can really keep going. Obviously, it's not very good too if you are a person with food addiction issues and such. But to be cautious and skeptical side of things, or the skeptical side of things, points to studies that show no added benefit of high protein for insulin resistance independent of weight loss, on the potential long-term risk with excessive consumption. So I don't know, depending on how we're looking at these, how the studies are run, how we look at the, maybe the preconceived notion, or what we're dealing with now, where protein is bad, and we're looking at the new guidelines that do push more protein, but still have the fear of saturated fats. So they're telling you to eat more protein, but then again, the saturated fat limit, or the recommendation, is 10% of calories from saturated fat, which really hamstrings a person's ability to really consume enough meat to get the protein requirements without going above those saturated fat requirements while still utilizing animal fats. So that's it's just one of those things. So, just a little thing to touch on here. So, yeah, people are continuing to say to feel better. Sharon is saying, yesterday was an embroidery day for me, t-shirts and a Carhartt jacket. Today, finishing up the order with a ball cap, then getting everything trimmed, steamed, and packed to ship out. That's what I'm talking about. Sean says, air hugs. Because what else would air frying auntie give? I had real life in-person hugs from Shauna before. Live and direct. Wrecked. Oh, Holly Springer is here. Good morning. I'm listening while I cook. Listen while you cook. Anyway. Yes. A fry hug would be awkward. Like, ow, you burned me. Shauna says, I have not done anything crafty in so long. I did put together a small dresser, though. Get it. You just need to get your crafts out. Just get crazy. Just craft something crazy. Cass said she tried the sugar diet. Lots of fruit and Sour Patch Kids. So I think that's the issue that we would run into, is because if you're saying I got to eat this much sugar, no fat, then you would, kind of go towards things like Sour Patch Kids, gummy bears, whatever, right? And then, it's so counterintuitive to say I'm going to lower my insulin response and my sugars and lose weight by eating nothing but sugar. I don't know. Yeah, but again, even I was watching a live stream yesterday with Dr. Sean Baker, and he was saying, in the short term, it can be kind of effective, but it's in the very, very short term. We're talking like a week maybe. But even still, if you're eating to get enough to feel satiated with gummy bears and fruit and all that stuff, I don't understand. I didn't try it. It didn't seem logical to me. But yeah. And Sharon's saying that, high protein does not work well for her. So, what level of protein are you getting on a daily basis, Sharon? They're saying that a person should have a minimum of about 100 grams of protein. Now, that's considered high for people, I think. Even, let's see, what are the recommendations for a woman? It says, so the recommended daily amount of protein is 46 grams for women and 56 grams for men. Now that's a thing from 2010, so it's a little outdated. But, are you getting an actual recommended amount? That's obviously, to me, extremely low. So somebody saying 100 grams of protein in a day would, in these guidelines, be considered high protein. So I'm curious to see from Sharon what she would consider high for her. Because to me, 46 grams of protein in a day would be really easy to get if you're looking at, let's see. That's only 7 or 8 eggs in a day. That's just eggs to get 7 to 8 to get your recommended 46 grams. I have 8 eggs and then 2 cans of sardines, and that's 100 grams of protein. So I'm curious. Now she's saying 75 grams. So she's still almost doubling the recommended daily amount. So she's still getting, like a 75% increase, give or take math. You know what I mean? Math. But yeah, if you're a smaller person, then sure, that might be, 75 grams may be plenty to keep your body going, but that's crazy. Grandma Barbara's here. Good morning, Grandma Barbara. I am Zadi is here. Good morning. I think you said your name before, but I don't remember. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Shauna says the sugar diet sounds like the C and the H cult knocked on the door. I mean, it was a huge thing a couple of months, like about a year ago or so. I don't know. Like, there was a huge thing. Like, everybody was trying it. There was everybody come together now, eat lots of sugar now. That's kind of what I see or saw. Oh, something weird. I don't know what that was. Ugh, I don't know. That was weird. Something funny in my mouth. I don't know. Something funny like. Don't know what that was. So, Cass is asking, Q, is low-fat plant-based diet any different than a sugar diet? I would say yes, because not all plants are going to turn. I mean, granted, with the sugar you're getting, or the plants you're getting a lot of fiber. There's a lot of stuff that your body's not going to break down, depending on the plants. So I would say that a low-fat plant-based diet, if you're eating cruciferous vegetables and you're not just eating oatmeal, because I mean, if you're eating a lot of oatmeal, like no-fat oatmeal, things like that, then yeah, it's probably very similar to the sugar diet, because that's going to be very quick and hard, like like with that. So yeah. Minimum 40 grams for women. I would say that typically the way this community looks at protein, they're saying that for the average should be a minimum of about 100. Now, with men that can be higher, but yeah. Julie Powell is in the house. Good morning, Julie. So glad to see you. She says, good morning, and good morning, you guys, and good morning, Dustin. That's me. And Sharon says, my protein varies daily, usually around 75-ish grams, where I do best. Yeah. And Sharon says, I don't see any hair loss or lack of energy. Fat I don't measure per se. It's more of how soon I get hungry again, that I know I needed a bit more fat to control my appetite. Yeah, that's how I've always kind of looked at how I eat. Is I kind of get an idea of how much protein I should have a day, and then fat to just as a lever to kind of control satiety. And then, like carbohydrates should be, to me, in my ideal world, as close to zero on the normal. That way, if I have days where it is higher, it's not as impactful to me overall. So for me, I like to look at how consistent am I with close to zero carbohydrates, getting plenty of protein, getting plenty of fat. I get plenty of fat. I mean, there's like almost a half a stick of butter and some heavy cream in this coffee. I get plenty of fat. So there's that. C&H Sugar Company. I see. I wasn't familiar. I don't know if I'm familiar with them or not. I'm gonna have to look them up. Let's see. Grandma Barbara says, my understanding, it's supposed to be moderate protein, high fat. Fat would be about double to protein. You're going to have glucose spikes. No, I would say it's not necessarily true. I would say that there are certain people out there where this may be the case. But yes, we do know that fat can help inhibit glucose spikes, right? So, but protein in of itself is not necessarily going to be something that drives up glucose in the bloodstream all by itself. I don't know how much, but like I said, we don't know what the mechanism behind that drives that, and then the people that do see those type of responses. Sorry about that. Had to mute myself there so I could sneeze. Oh my goodness. Ah. Sneezing on a Sunday, plane going somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, I think that we'd have to look at or try to figure out what the mechanism would be that would cause a person to eat protein that would cause an insulin or a glucose spike. And then we'd have to say, like, well, what's the magic number? Is there a magic number? Is there something? Is there a type of protein that does this to them? Because I would say that we are in an age where we are kind of looking and saying, moderate protein. Well, what does moderate protein look like for a person? What should that person, how much protein should that person have to not only stay where they are, but also gain necessary muscle? Because we have to make sure we are getting stronger and prolong or making sure that we are protecting our muscles at all costs. Because as we age, it becomes harder and harder to maintain muscle mass. And then that's where we start to lose strength, mobility, and all of those things. So we want to make sure that we are intaking adequate protein. I think just utilizing terms like moderate, high for protein doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. For an individual, moderate protein could be 150 grams, or high for somebody could be 110 grams. Someone like Sharon, she says she feels her best at about 75 grams of protein. But I think we have to really try to figure that out. I mean, we are in a unique point in history where we are humans trying to figure out what we need to eat to feel our best. Because almost every other point in history, on the whole, has been eating whatever they can, whether that's just meat, whatever it's grains and agriculture, because that's all they have. All they have is bread, whatever. How did we survive? We are in a very unique place in history where we are finally trying to relearn and to understand what our diet should be after we've kind of, not to use bad words, but we've kind of bastardized what diets and lifestyles should be over the last 200 years based on what we think we should do, as well as what corporations are telling us we should do based on what maximizes their profits. And Sharon says that she aims for about 2 meals a day. First meal around 11. Then I have dinner with Steph in the evening around 5 or 6. And Cass says that, don't fear protein. Yeah, don't fear protein. I heard a famous rock climber say that all adult humans do their best on 120 grams to maintain and prepare the human skeleton. I mean, there's no absolutes. Do I think 120 grams would be perfect for everyone? I can't say for sure. As again, we've had Sharon say she feels her best at about 75 grams of protein a day. We hear people like Dr. Barry say you should probably have at least 100 grams bare minimum. So where does that lie for the individual? And Sean is out of here. He's going to lunch. Sean, you have a good rest of your day, buddy. I'm glad that you were here for a little while. So, I mean, these are definite questions to be explored. This is not the last we're going to talk about this. This is something that is probably going to be a topic of discussion for some time, because I don't think we're going to figure it out right away. Coach Juliet's in the house. Good morning. How are you, my dear? And then we can look at, we've got a couple of other things we could talk about depending on what you would like to talk about. We could talk about the discussion around ultra processed keto foods versus whole foods. You know my opinion. Whole foods should be the standard with some processed foods in as you choose. But I don't think any kind of ultra processed food should be the bulk of anyone's dietary, their choices, their lifestyle, right? Now, can you really, I mean, is it realistic to never have any processed foods at all? I don't think necessarily is that is realistic for the average person. Again, when we are in this community, we are in a unique environment where the average person in this community is and has been dedicating themselves to finding what works best for them. So when we get into conversations in this community, it is a bit or a lot different than outside of this community. If we would go out and ask random people on the street how they feel about things, what they eat, what they think that they should eat, do they think that there's anything wrong with hyper processed, hyper palatable, highly processed foods, or is that just a thing that they feel that that's what they've been told is healthy? We're going to get a whole lot of answers that have nothing to do with our community. Again, that's where I think this community is so vital, because so much unknown or so much poor information is outside of this community. And I think inside this community, we do take for granted the fact that we are, for the most part, far better, or we all have a far better understanding of our individual needs than the outside normies, if you will. I'm not a big fan of that term, but there's going to be normies. The standard American diet, folks, the people who just go day by day, eat what they want, when they want, how they want. Even if they think they're watching their weight, even if they think they're trying to eat healthy, there's so much that goes into that I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I knew how to eat healthy. If I, one thing that Dr. Baker was talking about yesterday is that they tell you to eat these big giant salads, and really it comes down to it. It's is it a lot of work? It can be a lot of work to make a fresh salad every day. And then to me, it takes a long time to eat a big old salad. Like you're eating and eating and eating and eating, and you're not really even getting full. You usually just, now there's two types of, outside of being completely stuffed. If you remove being completely and absolutely just stuffed beyond belief, there's two types of ways that people will stop eating. Either you find natural satiety where you're like, well, I'm done. Or you just get tired of eating what you're eating. You get tired of the taste, the flavor, the texture, and you're like, I just can't eat I can't eat another bite. You're not necessarily full, and you're not necessarily satiated. You're just like, ugh. That's kind of how I feel when it comes to like potato chips, snack foods. I never get full. I never get satiated. I just get tired of eating it. Whereas when it comes to like a whole food, eating meat, eggs, bacon, and that kind of things, chicken and things, I will eat them, and I will get to a point where I'm like, well, okay, I'm okay. It's a totally different feeling for me. So Shauna's on her way to work, dear. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so very much, Shauna. Have a great rest of your day, dear. But yeah, I think that we kind of get lost in the idea that everyone out there thinks like us and everybody's looking at their own health like us. But we have to remember that we are the exception and not the rule when it comes to everybody on the planet. I mean, is it a growing kind of thing that, are we even if they're not doing proper human diet, there is a growing number of people out there who are trying to better understand their health through diet. Whether it's, eat less, move more, whatever, right? There's still a lot of people out there trying to do better. But again, I can't reiterate this enough. Inside of this community, we are more dialed into the minutia of keto, carnivore, and we are usually debating back and forth on what is best for people in our community, whether it's keto, carnivore, low carb, and we get the factions of people that say carnivore is for everybody, and there's no reason you can't be carnivore, and whatever the case is. But I think we end up warring against each other in a way, instead of putting our heads together and saying, how do we realistically get everybody else on board? So that's another thing that I like to talk about, because I think it's so very important, because so many people don't understand, and we have to be mindful of terminology. We have to be mindful of how we present our lifestyles to people, because again, you have to remember, they are looking from the outside in with a whole different perspective. And it's like people who see like a steak being cooked on a short form video, and it's cooked rare, and you'll go through the comments, and everybody's saying, that's not even done, that's not even cooked, oh my goodness, how dare you, and so you see these kinds of comments. Then you'll see then you'll see a spattering or a smattering or whatever the word you want to use in the comments that talks about, well, that's how I like my steak. You'll see 10%, 20% of those, and then 80% is, that's not even cooked all the way. So we have to think about our community, how our community is viewed by the outside, how we present ourselves to the outside, how we need to work together, keto, carnivore, low carb, paleo, whatever. We have to work together to make sure that we are putting together a cohesive, how to put it, like a cohesive way to communicate with the normies, if you will. Again, that's a term that drives me crazy, but people out there who are not a part of our community, who are undereducated on how meat is and how fat really is, and because we're battling against meat's bad, fat's bad, high carb is good, low cholesterol is good, sugar is empty calories, eat less, move more, all the tropes, all of the colloquialisms. I don't know why I can never say that word right, but colloquial, you know what I'm trying to say, right? Let me know. But yeah, so I don't know. We are on the front lines of trying to make it not sound crazy, is what I'm trying to say. We are responsible to be mindful of how people look at us, how we present ourselves to the outside world. We want to make sure that we are bringing people in and not alienating ourselves because we are saying crazy stuff. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with who Alex Jones is, right? So he is a personality, conspiracy theory type of person, loud, blustery, gets himself in trouble with what he says. And I'm thinking, to me, someone like him, he could literally be right about everything that he says, but no one's going to listen to him and take him seriously because they think he's crazy. It's kind of like people always say, Jesus is coming back. Jesus is going to come back, right? And again, not to be religious or political or anything, but that's the thing that he's been coming back for, centuries. And my thing is, if he came back, would we believe him? Would we believe him if he said, hey, it's me? Would we believe him? Would we take him seriously? Would these are just questions that I have. How do you take somebody seriously who says something so outlandish that it's inconceivable? What do you mean cholesterol's not the enemy, sugar is? That's preposterous. It's inconceivable. You know what I mean? That's just, just weird questions, right? Yeah, 100%. To each your own. What works best for you. And but the thing is just a blanket statement in and of itself doesn't work. You have to put work in to figure out what works best for you, because a lot of times people are living these lives, these lifestyles and they are unsure of what's working best for them. They don't realize they feel bad. So these are a lot of things, right? And, Cass says after 40, you need more protein. Yeah. I mean, really, we should be increasing our protein every year as we age, a gram or two or whatever we can do, an extra egg, whatever, right? Because we had to make sure that for longevity, that's why you see like little old frail people, they don't eat enough, they drink less water. I mean, that was a thing with my grandmother. She stopped drinking water. She just we would have like my uncle would set out 3 bottles of water for her a day, not even electrolytes or anything. Just this is your goal for the day, 3 bottles of water. So 3 16.9 ounce bottles of water. So each, 500 ml bottle of water. And Sharon says, for me, it's also the form of protein. I do better with beef and pork. Chicken is on occasion. I mean, right now we've been eating more and more chicken because chicken is $1.77 a pound. Pork has gone up, beef has gone up. Chicken, I mean, used to be 99 cents, 89 cents a pound. So it's still 100% more expensive. But even at 100% more expensive, it's still something that we can afford. So we've been buying chicken thighs and having chicken thighs ad nauseum. I'm sure I've been sending them to Chandra for her lunches, all the things. I'm sure she's super excited about having that. I'm probably going to make her a steak later today because I had some steaks in the fridge thawing out for her. So I'll probably cook her a good steak today. Hopefully she feels up to eating that, make her feel a little bit better. Something that's not chicken. But, but I mean, we've been eating lots and lots of chicken because it's affordable. Because everything is so expensive. Like we can't afford to eat steak all the time. We did buy a big, a New York strip roast from Costco a couple of weeks ago, and I cut that thing into like 19 steaks, and I've been giving them to Chandra because she deserves the best, right? So I'm fine with burgers and hot dogs. I'm fine. I don't need anything special. Burgers, hot dogs, chicken. I'm okay. Chicken, give me the chicken. I'm okay. But I think would it be better to have beef every day? 100%. But even like the cheapest burger right now, if you could find it, you might find it for less than $4 a pound. So, I mean, $1.77 a pound is where it's at right now for us. The way our bank accounts are set up, $1.77 a pound is where it's at. So, Cass says, I feel better on mid to lower protein. Sherry Lynn's in the house. Good morning, all. Making a roast for dinner, getting ready for interview this afternoon for an LP position at work. Loss prevention. There you go. You're going to be the one catching the shoplifters. I love it. I got to come to your store. You know what I look like. The higher fat right now is agreeing with me, but I like to stay flexible. Yeah, 100%. Shelly says, I aim for 100 grams of protein every day. I've heard to aim for 1 gram per lean body weight, which is 145 for me. That feels high, but sometimes I hit that depending on what I eat. Yeah. And I mean, I don't think we should really be looking at protein powders and protein drinks. And I mean, unless it's absolutely necessary, like not the booster and sure stuff, but maybe the other ones that are less sugar. There's I don't know, I don't know the names of them, but there's a bunch of them out there. I think even Costco now has their own brand. I think maybe does Kirkland have their own protein drink now? Their protein bars are gross. Kirkland protein shake. Let's see. Kirkland Signature Chocolate Nutrition Shake. Let's see. 15 grams of protein per serving, 24 essential vitamins and minerals, trans, fat-free, and gluten-free. You get 32 in a pack. There are 240 mils, so about 8 ounces. Let's see. Flavor, chocolate, 32 in there, but it doesn't give me specifications. No, it doesn't. See if I can find the ingredients. Let's see. Kirkland's signature chocolate nutrition shakes contain water, maltodextrin, milk protein concentrate, sugar, soy oil, calcium, caseinate, cocoa, vitamins, mineral blend, including potassium citrate, magnesium phosphate, vitamin A, B, D, or vitamin A, D, E, B12. Fat sources, soy oil, canola oil, high oleic, sunflower oil. These are hideous. They're 200 calories, fat 6 grams, carbohydrates 22 grams. This is not what I thought. I thought this was gonna compete with the other protein shakes. So there's other like lower sugar protein shakes. Fairlife Core Power. Let's see. I know, like the Premier Protein is the one I'm thinking of. Premier Protein, the Atkins. I think there were Quest had some. I don't know if they still make those or not. But yeah, that's insanity. So yeah, I didn't know that. But that's not a lot. Terry Girl's in the house. Good morning. She says, morning, Dustin, and the rest of you headbangers. Yeah, boy. I'm going to see Ghost tomorrow night. I'm excited. I got invited by some friends to go see Ghost in Cincinnati. So I'll be in the Cincinnati area tomorrow night at the stadium wherever Ghost is playing. I don't even have to drive. I just got to drive to my friend's house, get in the car, and ride for the first time. I never not drive. It is kind of weird for me to not drive. So I'm like trying to be okay with that. Sharon switched to her office, or switching to her office. She was going to be right back. She's probably already there. Yeah, lots of chicken thighs in this house. Yeah, 100% chicken thighs. I probably have to go to the store sometime today and buy some more because it's Tuesday already and we're going to need some for the week. Chicken thighs all the time. I mean, I was buying steakums sometimes, but Chandra doesn't like the steakums very much. There's some beef that I've got in the freezer for her. I have a 25-pound chuck roll in the freezer in the garage. I got to pull out eventually and thaw and then butcher because it's ridiculously big. 25 pounds of beef, boy. But yeah. But Jeremiah, my good friend Jeremiah, is in the house. Hello, sir. How are you? Oh, let's see. Rick says, good luck to Sherry. He says, my daughter is a payroll person at a local store. She was asked to help with LP, loss intervention prevention one day, and she loved it. My brother did LP for Walmart for a long time. He liked it. Well, he did, but he didn't. A Mason, hello, dear. How are you? Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us on this episode of I'm a Weirdo. Here we go. All right. Sharon says, I'm back, just installing some cat driver on my machine. Yeah. Woo. So yeah, I mean, so it kind of goes back against what I was talking about is like the pushback against the fear-based messaging around red meat and saturated fats. But again, you can't, like, the thing is we get caught up into arguing with people. And if any of you are aware of like, if you're on my personal social media stuff, I don't argue with people about things. I usually will post my opinions and or facts that back up my opinions and why I feel the way that I feel. But I'm not here to argue with people. I mean, I'm not, because people don't adapt well to arguing. They don't respond well to arguing. People don't change their minds. people just get mad and push back and yell and get upset and cuss at each other and call each other names. That's just not something that I'm not here for that, because it doesn't serve or benefit most people. So I am here to live my life to the best of my ability. I'm here to show and kind of give understanding to why I do what I do, why I am the way that I am, why and how I've come to these conclusions, the fact that I am open to change, the fact that I am open to new information. But the average person, you can go out and say red meat's not bad for you and cholesterol is not the issue, but those two topics are so ingrained in the zeitgeist of our society, into pop culture. It's so ingrained in everything that we think we know about nutrition and health, that you can say that and people go, and they just glaze over, because they're like, there's no way that it can be true, because they've been told for so long that saturated fat and red meat are going to give me a heart attack and cancer. That red meat rots in your intestines and it never leaves. It just stays there forever. Which, I mean, realistically, if that was the case, your guts would rot away long before you ever got cancer. You would just die of like sepsis first, if that's what happened in your guts. If your intestine just held on to rotting meat forever, you would have bigger problems than cancer. You would have sepsis and all that, and shock and all that stuff, and you'd be curtains. So, but I mean, even so, it's like the old quote: it's easier to fool someone than it is to convince them that they've been fooled. So, whether it's nutrition or whatever the case is, I think that I try my best with this community to be open, honest, transparent, share my thoughts, try to look at, both sides of any kind of issue. Like, if you're looking at protein, whether protein causes a glucose spike or doesn't. Why does it? If it does, how come it does it for you? But if it doesn't for somebody else, why doesn't it do that? What can we learn from this information? How do we move forward? How do we utilize that information to help others? How do we do that? How do we spread this understanding, this knowledge, in a way that's meaningful, impactful, and is going to not really, you're always going to meet that resistance. You're going to meet those people who can't relearn. They can't unlearn what they know. Because what they know, we run into that with doctors all the time. It's hard for them to unlearn what they know. Most doctors don't have the ability or the drive to be consistent and up to date with the latest research. And even if they are they getting the same, are they looking at the same studies you would like them to look at? How do we, it almost seems like a fool's errand, really, sometimes, as I'm making this content, as we have these lives, and I think about outside of this community, I think about outside of the people who join me for these lives. I think about, how do we continue to move forward? And, really, it is a very slow and, really slow process, but one person by one person by one person, if you can get one person to start making better choices, you can get one person to start looking at things differently. If they start looking at the overall outcomes that they're seeing, how do they feel? And they change something and they realize they feel better, and then they make another change for the better. And then they may share that with somebody. So, it is kind of like, it is like a weird game of telephone. Hopefully it works for us. But there are days where I'm extremely overwhelmingly optimistic that we're going to make a difference. But also at the same time, I feel like any meaningful, massive change is not going to come by legislation. It's not going to come by someone like, I almost said Robert Downey Jr., by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They come on the scene, they make a big splash, but I don't know how much they actually change, because, again, with those personalities comes pushback, the opposition, the political cartoons, looking at them as a buffoon. They look at them, and some of the stuff they say may make them a buffoon. Some of the stuff they say is laughable, because again, we have to remember nobody is perfect all across the board. And we look at these guidelines, we look at the things that they say, we look at all this stuff, and we have to say, it's like we look at the new guidelines. Again, the guidelines have changed, they've shifted, but there's still a lot of pushback on these guidelines. And we're, even from our own community, we have to realistically look at the guidelines and say it's a half step in the right direction. Because while they're pushing and saying we should have more protein, focus on animal proteins and animal fats, then on the converse, they go, you should do this, this, and this, but keep your saturated fats at less than 10% of your daily calories. Now, could they have got these updates, these guidelines shifted without saying that? Even if they went 15 to 20%, they probably would have never got the guidelines to change, even to where they are. So we have to look at why they make these small incremental changes, but we have to remember how we got here in the first place. It wasn't one day they came out and said all the things have to change. It was a slow, arduous process, little by little by little by little, saying that, started the promotion, the marketing behind polyunsaturated fats and the canola, the cottonseed oils, all of the things that turned into Crisco and all the things. That was a slow marketing campaign that slowly fell in line with guidelines. That was slow and arduous, but people trust their doctors. People trust what they're told. Who are you supposed to trust? Me, a grifter on the internet, or, your family doctor who knew your mom, knew your dad, knows your kids, whatever, right? Whether that even happens anymore or not. But at the time that these guidelines started to shift, that was the norm. You saw a family doctor. You had the doctor for 2-3 generations. Your mom took you to them, and then you took your kids to them, and then they retired and their kid came in, and then, that's kind of what happened. And so that's slowly how things changed. How are we going to change it back? While I'm sitting here as a voice in the ether here with this positive message, there could be 10 to 20 to 30 other channels saying the complete opposite, saying that I am a grifter. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm still fat. How could I be somebody to trust if I'm still fat? These are realistic things to take into consideration. And then I also have been pushing as of late, the increased awareness of food addiction and satiety signaling. How do we battle that? How do we get people to understand that they even have a food addiction issue? The person sitting in their car, sneak eating, McDonald's before they go home, or going to the drive-thru and eating that before they even go in the house to have dinner with their family. They don't see that as a food addiction. They see that as an emotional issue. Is it an emotional issue? Yeah, sure. But is it connected to food addiction too? So this is a deep, deep set of issues that we have a lot of work to get through. So I don't know. Oh my goodness gracious, look at that. I can't believe it. Let me see. Jeremiah said he's trying to figure out something for lunch. I can't believe it. Jaheel is here. Mr. Mind Your Business. Your business. Just saying hi real quick. Back to work. But hi, everyone. Hope you're all behaving yourselves. I miss you, Mr. Jaheel. Thank you for joining us. Glad that you stopped by, even if for just a minute. Good to see your shiny, smiley face and your avatar. And Mikey is here. Good morning, Mr. Micro, Mr. Mikey, a good friend of mine. Welcome, welcome. But yeah, so again, it's just one of, he says all the protein. Yes. But again, it's just, I feel like it's such an uphill battle that some days it seems achievable and some days it doesn't. So let me know your thoughts here. It's not going to be a long live today. We're coming up right on the hour. Probably going to keep it short and sweet today. I did a live Saturday, a live Sunday, and we'll do today just for maybe a little over an hour. Yeah. Let's see. So let's see. This person here says, at some point, will this man just take Ozempic? Well, here's the issue. I don't think that's the right choice for most people. I don't think it's a good idea, but does it really have another 10 to 15 years to figure it out? It looks like he uses a CPAP. I do use a CPAP to sleep. That's correct. It took me a long time to get to that point. So I'm not quite sure what you're hoping to achieve here. But, I think right now the idea that everyone should be on Ozempic is crazy. That's like putting metformin in the water, or they actually talked about putting statins in the water. They already put stuff in the water. So I just kind of wonder, would you rather figure it out yourself and make it a long-term goal, or would you want to take a medication for the rest of your life? These are the choices that we have to make. Realistic, impactful choices to our livelihoods, our bodies, everything. These are choices that are realistic to a lot of people. Weight loss surgery, Ozempic, the GLP-1s, by whatever name, whatever brand you're looking at. They're talking about making them into pill form. They're talking about all kinds of stuff right now. But these are choices that each individual person must make. And how do you make them? How do you know what's the right choice for you? Because why you have somebody come in here and ask these questions not so much in good faith, but it is a legitimate question that's being asked amongst millions of people. So here we have, they're saying that rather you stay healthy and be around for your grandkids, maybe in your case, gambling with GLP-1 and a ketogenic life, a ketogenic diet would be worth it. But at the same time, I mean, again, it's an individual person's choice. As we are watching this unfold, we're watching people who are on Ozempic. A lot of people that we're seeing in the public eye are on it that don't need to be, that shouldn't be on it. They're doing it for vanity reasons. A lot of people are on it because they feel like they have no way out. They don't understand themselves. But do I think it is the best choice for most people? I don't think so. Just like I don't think that weight loss surgery is the best for everyone either. For the fact that most people don't understand that when you have the weight loss surgery, you will inevitably lose a good amount of weight. But you're also having difficulty absorbing any nutrition from the food that you are taking in. You're now bound to supplements for a very long time. And we have seen through historical data over the past 20 plus years, a high number of people will inevitably gain the weight back because you're not fixing the root cause. The root cause of obesity and being overweight is not the size of your stomach. It is not your metabolism. It is inherently the quality of food that we have in this country. We have an abundance of hyper palatable, highly processed food that has been sold to us as the most healthy options. We are told to eat more grains. We are told that sugar isn't that big of a deal, that we should avoid meat, and we are told that we should keep our cholesterol low. And if we're on these things, we're on medications. A doctor will give you a plan. And if that plan doesn't work, even if that person is diligent with that plan, the doctor will assume you are non-compliant with that plan or that whatever, the meal plan or whatever, right? That what they're telling you to do, eat less, move more, keep your saturated fats low, get 12, 13 servings of whole grains every day, eat plenty of, fruits and vegetables, eat your, your soybean oil and your canola oil and you're going to be fine. But if you don't lose weight, well, you just didn't do it right. And the fact is that people do have extreme side effects when it comes to these mass amounts of GLP-1s. We are seeing people's digestive systems completely shut down. We're seeing a lot of things. Now, again, this person here is talking about, GLP-1s are risky. We know that they're risky. There's plenty of data on how risky they can be. Now, is it the only way? Should everyone try them so they can tolerate them? Absolutely not. I do not believe that in the slightest. Should it be in a conversation for certain people to take these kinds of medications? It's definitely a tool in the toolbox. There's definite supporters for these medications. There's obviously people who say you should avoid them at all cost. Now, my goal, my outlook is everyone probably should not take them. Most people should not take them. Just like I feel most people should not have weight loss surgery, again, because they don't address the root cause of what's causing these issues. Our food supply is terrible. People can't afford to eat single ingredient whole foods every day, let alone do they have the time to take care of meal planning, meal prepping. Even if you keep it as simple as every day in the crock pot, a roast, roast potatoes, carrots, whatever, regardless if that's low carb to you or whatever. I still think that if you have like a chicken, potatoes, carrots, or whatever, roast, potatoes, carrots, a pork roast, whatever, put them in a crock pot with some broccoli, whatever, and make a simple meal every day, you are going to be leaps and bounds above everybody else. But the average person is living on drive-through. They're living on boxed, easy to make at home, frozen dinners, whatever, sandwiches, whatever. That's the thing, is people have these issues. And how do we move the needle with people who have these issues and ensure that they get better without being chained to these medications, without having their insides rearranged? How do we do that? We lived for multiple millennia without having these issues. Why is it just within the last 200 years we've started to see this issue? It comes down to marketing. It comes down to the industrial revolution with foods, marketing, manufacturing, hyper palatability. The thing is while these medications should be in the conversation for certain people, the broader conversation is how do we fix this on a bigger scale without medications? And that's just not a conversation that's probably going to happen with your doctor. It's not going to happen with legislation because there's too much money involved here. So that's why I see channels like mine and all the other channels out there who talk about the same stuff are so valuable, because people may call me a grifter or whatever. Yeah, I have affiliate marketing links and stuff, but none of those things that I have for offer for you are required to be successful. Those are just a few things that may make your process, things that you are dealing with, easier, more convenient, but they are by no means necessary. But I'm here talking about my own experiences. I'm a person who has struggled and will probably continue to struggle with my weight, probably for the rest of my life, however long that is. And while people will come in there and say that, I should just take medicine, I should do whatever, I understand that there's people in our lives that they're never going to diet. Our kids are probably our kids see how I eat on a daily basis, and I have talked to them at nauseum while the foods that they have in our house impact me in a negative way. They bring in and make pizzas, and they have fast food in the house, and they have crackers and chips and Cheetos and all the things in the house that impact me negatively because I see them. And that is a difficult thing for me to ignore, to bypass, and not pick up and eat sometimes. I am 90+% better than I was 10 years ago when I started this process, this journey. I have lost over 100 pounds without needing medications, actually getting off all of my medications. And I think it's very important. And this person's saying that, they're on the camp that avoid them at all costs. But at the same time, if you have yo-yo weight for decades, I mean, realistically, my weight just went up for decades. Just went up, 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 until I figured out how to start making it go the right way. And it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a constant battle because there is food addiction issues. There are complications with lifestyle, with things in the house that shouldn't be here. How do I stay in my room all the time. I stay up in this office all the time as much as I can to try to avoid being downstairs and avoiding that stuff. We don't keep food in the house. The only thing I have up here are electrolytes and stuff like this, just so I can have my electrolytes up here. But again, living an intentional, meaningful life and trying to understand yourself to better yourself. Are there going to be some people who won't survive without these medications? Absolutely. There are certain people out there where these medications are the difference between life and death. But I think it's important that each individual person gets to make those choices. And hopefully they're making those choices as informed as possible. How do they get to understand where they are, who they are, what's going to be best for them now as well as in the future? And if they decide to take these medications, do they have a plan, a course of action to get themselves off of these medications? Because I've heard that because I have friends that are on them right now. But if they're on them and they're getting to a point where they are not, where they're able to control their hunger, are they learning from these? Are they still eating whatever they want? Because if they are and they get off the medication, they're going to just automatically go back to continue doing what they were doing, and they're just going to go right back up again. So there's no real long-term benefit to these medications. There's no long-term or even short-term plan to get them off the medications. That's where medications bother me, because most of the time there are no contingency plans. At least if we're going into like a proper human diet spectrum, you have everything from single ingredient, whole food, low carb, all the way to, what would be considered lion diet, beef, salt, water. So you have a spectrum of things to play with keto and carnivore and ketovore, whatever in between, right? And Mason here, Mason says, I can do have overeat because I was hurting from something, but I would not have turned to it as quick if there were not an addiction reaction. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is if you didn't get a dopamine response from the food you were taking in, easy food like fast food or whatever. I'm a huge, like, for me, the hardest thing to not have that I don't have, like, for me, like macaroni and cheese, ramen noodles, corn dogs, chicken nuggets. I would eat like a 5-year-old. But I avoid most of that stuff on a normal basis. And I think that's a huge win. I'm saying that I'm not talking about people who are 20 pounds away from a six pack, but I think there's a lot of people out there who are utilizing these medications for these very things. They, and I mean, instead they're talking about people who are obese, risking blood pressure issues, diabetes, mobility. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who truly could benefit from some of these medications, but there has to be a plan. Just going on them with no education, no understanding of the mechanisms behind why the drugs are doing what they do, no understanding what they're doing to the body, no understanding of how can you utilize them and leverage these medications to get better if you can, because they're a cash cow. Like, that's the reason why they wanted to put statins in the water, because pharmaceutical companies make trillions of dollars on cholesterol medications. That's why the conversation about cholesterol is so difficult, because if it wasn't for high cholesterol, or what they call high cholesterol, we wouldn't have statin drugs. Statin drugs make more money than the blue pills do. And think about that for a second. And then we got into the age of surgeries. So do I think GLP drugs are a little bit better than surgery? Yes, because you're not necessarily rearranging your insides, but there's a possibility that those medications shut your insides down, they die, and then you die. These are tough things to talk about. These are hard conversations to have. And I don't think we're having legitimate, honest conversations about this. I don't think doctors are necessarily giving the full information. I know before you go to have weight loss surgery, there's usually 6 months of things you have to go through, counseling and all these things you go through. But I never went through it, but I almost can guarantee you they're probably not talking about long-term satiety. They're not looking at how do you eat to maintain a semblance of satiety if you can only eat this much food. Like, you're eating just a little bit of food, and you're somebody like me who used to eat just massive amounts of food every day. I don't know. These are just questions that I think are not being posed. Brenda Foley is here. Good morning, Brenda. Thank you for joining us. And I appreciate that. You're a great speaker with years of knowledge gained or gleaned. Yeah, I feel like there's a couple of different ways to view channels like mine. And I mean, because there's people who are here just to sell stuff. There's people here who are just to take advantage. People who come on here and talk about things that may not really understand. And there's a lot of things that I am still trying to understand. I'm still trying to learn. But, do I have things to sell? Sure. I've got to try to make a living too, but I don't really push it all that much. But anyway, yeah. I did a year of carnivore at one point. Not necessarily the lion diet. I don't know if I could do it. I'm sure I could do it eventually, but And I think I think until more and more people come forward with bad side effects, GLP-1s will continue to be popular, and many people are just accepting that they will take the meds for life. That's the thing is I feel that that's just the kind of reality people think that they are resigned to live in. And I think there's a level there of hopelessness, and people just kind of give up because they don't see a way out. And like, oh, they've got this new drug, that's my way. So maybe if there were more people like me out here showing the real world scenarios, yes, I've gained weight back, but I'm still pushing forward. I haven't given up. And I kind of feel that there's so many people out there who are on the verge of giving up, have given up. I could have given up easily. The time between when my mother passed away in 2013 to the point where I started living keto was a couple of years, about a 3-year span of my life where basically I had kind of resigned myself to the fact that I was just the way it was. I was going to end up just like her. I'm going to end up extremely diabetic, heart attacks, strokes, gone by 59. That's just going to be how I live. And I found the ketogenic lifestyle, and it was a huge revelation for me. We didn't even go into it as keto. We went into it with just low carb in mind. Had not even really an idea of what low carb was. But yeah. And I mean, there's a big giant, you know something's not right. There's a black market for something. That's terrifying. Now, this is an interesting comparison. You're like Carnivore Quest people, but more interesting. So I'm familiar with them. I think they are a channel that tries to showcase their reality. They face a lot of demons. They've got a lot going on for them, and they struggle. And he says that they come off as weak. I don't necessarily see them as weak. I think they've been through more than I've been through. They've been through a lot. I do try to be less clickbaity than they do, but maybe that's why I get significantly less views, significantly less engagement. But I just want to be here and be real. But yeah, I mean, and A Mason's asking if knocking on myself and Larry and his wife. I mean, this is the internet. This is YouTube. These are the kind of things that'll happen. Whether somebody comes in here and they want to be honest and open, or they want to be, however they want to be, I'm here to address all of it. Because, I mean, that's just who I am. But, I don't know. I don't necessarily think that I don't have anything negative to say about them, but with Larry and Cassie, I will jump in on their lives every once in a while and comment a little bit. I just know that they're a couple that struggle. They've got a lot of struggle in their life, and they're showing it. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know them personally, so I don't know how real it is. I would assume that it's about as real as you can get here, I guess. Yeah, and I mean, and A Mason's saying the thing here, like, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I knew that there was a deep-seated, history of extreme trauma for them, and that's about as much trauma as you can have, right? So, I mean, they have a lot of emotional baggage that they're bringing to the table, and I mean that kind of emotional damage, and and you never quite work through that. And food is one of those things that just really, really, when you're sad and you don't, and food is there, food is the one thing that's food is comforting. And I know that that there's a push, with the carnivore community, and a lot of people like, when people like Ethan Suplee and such, she comes out and says, food is fuel, food is not entertainment. And I understand where that comes from, because if that's what you need to do to survive, then by all means do that. And yeah, I mean, it's difficult. And I don't necessarily think that GLP-1s or weight loss surgery that can't remove the trauma. It can't remove all of the underlying factors that mix with the hyper palatable, highly processed foods to create that perfect storm, right? The food addiction is a perfect storm of just eating to console yourself. Whether it's, and it happens because I mean that really comes from like my mom and such. There's a lot of history with that with my mom, and that gets passed down to your kids. I said something in a comment the other day about people say, things are, running the family, like diabetes will run in a family. And it's, well, I mean, realistically, diabetes can run in a family because family tends to eat like their family. And somebody will say, well, then I've got one kid who's really skinny. I was like, well, it's not guaranteed. But it tends to do that. Like, I grew up in a family where my mom and my great aunt, we would go as they loved to spend time together at the buffets back when buffets weren't like, I don't know, we would go and they would eat at buffets all the time. And we would go with them when I was a kid. So just large amount of food was just the norm for us. It was the way they spent time. But my great grandmother, well, she wasn't a big woman. She was a normal sized lady, but she was always, oh, you're here, let's feed you. That very southern mentality. So I don't know. But I think with that, we're going to call it a day. I think it's been a little longer than I was going to talk today, but we'll be here for that. So I appreciate all of you being here, as always. Oh, thank you for spending part of your morning here with me. And whether you watch, I know some of you come in and watch and don't chat. I know some of you kind of just come in and listen or listen later. Those of you who did or didn't asking questions, did or didn't ask questions, just hung out with your coffee. I mean, that your presence still matters with me more than you know. And I mean, sometimes these relaxed and scripted mornings, they are a reminder that community isn't built on perfection or constant productivity, because I don't always have something important to talk about. Even I try to build in something to talk about. I still try to talk about important topics, but I don't always have them before I start. But please take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves, your bodies. Be loving and give yourself grace. We'll be back together again soon. I'll be back Sunday morning. I got some more shorts coming out this week. Some more long form content, hopefully to get put together and get out. We'll talk about some other stuff. I'll put together some more videos for you. But until then, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you for being here. I love you guys. And thanks so much. And here come those credits, everybody.